What's up, guys? I don't know if you can hear me because I'm using a GoPro for this, because I'm on holiday in France and have been for the last 4 days or so. We came out here, all 6 of us in the family, for a family break, for a holiday, little mini break for my birthday, which is on Saturday. And as a result of that, I must apologise for not uploading any videos on Thursday and Friday, because we were just too engrossed in doing good, cool family stuff, and it's been awesome. However, your questions have still been coming in, which I really appreciate, so thank you very much as ever for those, and I'm going to try and crack through some. It's Sunday now, I'm about to head home, so we might start this here and finish it when I get back home to the UK. But first of all, just check out this place. Now, the weather has been absolutely awesome. It's obviously a bit grey and cloudy today, but it's been spectacular. So it's been fantastic to hang out in the pool. Just playing out here for a couple of days has been brilliant. Running around the garden with a football, all that kind of family stuff that you just don't get time to do when you're in the midst of daily life back at home. But anyway, let's talk about the Japanese Grand Prix, because it happened early this morning. I actually didn't see it. I've got to be honest, I haven't seen it yet. It's been recorded and I will be watching it at the earliest opportunity. So by the end of this video, when I get home, I'll have seen the race and I'll be able to answer the race-specific questions. But I want to start with this one from Matthew Steer, who says, oh, hang on, we didn't do the sting. We didn't do the sting. Roll the sting. Roll the sting. So that is the place. It's pretty impressive, isn't it? I just love it. I love these old French buildings that are converted barns and stone walls, really high ceilings and oak beams. They are just spectacular, and whoever's house this is has done a spectacular job of making it stunning. It's been amazing. What a beautiful place. Anyway, back to where I was. Matthew Steer, apologies for the delay in answering your question, but Matthew asked this question about the Honda engine. He says, if Honda can get this new engine to be utterly reliable, can it deliver enough power to provide Red Bull with a chance at a championship title challenge next year? Well, the thing is, I mean, look, it's a great step from Honda. What we saw in Japan this time around was a big step. We saw it, in fact, at the last time out in Russia. We saw it on Friday, and it delivered quite a significant chunk of time, and the team were very, very upbeat about it. And it's proved to deliver, you know, some extra performance here in Japan as well. So it's a great step forward. The thing about a championship challenge is that, yes, of course, it has to be utterly reliable, and that's no easy task. And secondly, it has to be completely drivable. It has to, the drivability, which is a word you keep hearing about, it's about how it integrates with the chassis and how it integrates with the driver and the driver's style, and delivering power at the right moments, and the sort of torque curve, the torque map, in the way that it delivers that maximum power. So there's much more to providing a decent F1 power unit than just providing a big maximum power figure. And that's something that will take time. That's something that the likes of Mercedes and Ferrari have been working for years now, incrementally working towards what they have now, which works incredibly well. Honda were A, late to the party, and B, have had so many teething troubles along the way. Only really now are they starting to get to the point that Mercedes were probably 3 years ago. And so it's going to be a difficult challenge, but they've definitely put themselves much further, in a position to be much further up the grid than they currently have been for the last few years. So a really brilliant step forward from Honda. Whether it can bring a championship challenge for Red Bull, I think probably a little bit much to ask for next year, but a great step in the right direction. And who knows, maybe the odd race win, and maybe the year after they'll be in a position to have a sustained championship fight? This one from Hallian Gaming I've had before, and it's a good question because on the face of it, it seems like a strange one, but he says, I'm hoping you can answer this question. It's been driving me crazy for ages. During some TV footage, I've seen what appears to be a map of the circuit or a sticker inside the cockpit. What's it for? Surely the drivers know the track layout by that point. Well, okay, it's a fair question. It's a decent question. As I say, I've had it lots of times. Those little stickers that you get with a map of the circuit that are stuck inside the cockpit, the mechanics do that for the drivers. They cut them out and they stick them in with a bit of clear tape over the top in case they get wet. And it's really in case when the driver comes in from a run and he wants to download to his engineer, give a bit of a quick debrief of what just happened on that run, what he felt. He's got a very quick reference in front of him that he can look down and say, look, it was at this point on the track, it was at the beginning of turn 3, just before you come off the exit curb, and it just gives you a very quick visual reference to be able to talk very quickly to your engineer over the radio about what it is you were feeling at a particular point on the track, or if the engineer rather is talking to the driver and saying, look, we've seen something on the data around, you know, the sort of left-hander of turn 4 at this particular point. The driver can look at the map and go, oh, okay, yeah, there, yeah, I know what you mean there, yeah, I felt that too, and it was a bit of this and a bit of that, or I need a bit more of this there. So it's just a really quick way and to speed up the process of the communication process between driver and his engineer. Nothing more than that. Yes, of course, the driver knows the circuit, but it's just to make the whole process quicker and easier. Van Archie says, I know that F1 teams can change the front wing angle during the race, the front wing flap, but can they change the entire nose spec at a pit stop during a nose change? Yes, they can. They can do that. The reason they probably don't more often than not is because if you do make a drastic change, like a huge conceptual change to the front wing at a nose change, you have to balance that with a change at the rear generally. So that's not such an easy thing to do. So that's why they keep any changes at a pit stop reasonably minimal. iCrish46 says, Lewis said that Ferrari had added 3/10 during the British Grand Prix, and now there are rumours of a second sensor being fitted inside the Ferrari power unit by the FIA. Can you please explain what the FIA might be monitoring, please? This is a question that's come up a lot recently. There have been a lot of rumours and speculation about the fact that Ferrari have suddenly seemed to lose a lot of pace compared to Mercedes off the back of these rumours that the FIA have fitted some kind of extra sensor, some kind of extra monitoring device. As far as I'm aware, and there is still a lot of secrecy shrouded around this, so I don't think many people really know the truth about this. As far as I'm aware, the second sensor that was fitted to the Ferrari power unit, or specifically the Ferrari energy store part of the ERS system, was done way back in Monaco earlier this year, and it was because there were some questions that initially came from Niki Lauda at Mercedes about how Ferrari were running a very complex energy store system, like a twin battery system within their energy store, and they wanted clarification. Mercedes or Niki Lauda wanted clarification as to exactly how it was working and to make sure there was nothing untoward going on. The FIA then went to Ferrari, asked them, because it was so complicated, it wasn't straightforward, and asked them to run an extra sensor so they could monitor the energy flows between their various parts of the ERS system to make sure they weren't breaching any rules. Ferrari, as far as I'm aware, complied with that, fitted the extra sensor, and on things went, and they continued monitoring that energy flow to make sure it wasn't going higher than the allowed amounts. There were stories or rumours that in Singapore or post-Singapore something else was fitted to Ferrari by the FIA. As far as I know, that didn't happen. As far as I know, this is just a story that's been churned up again from Monaco. Now, however, Ferrari have clearly lost some pace compared to Mercedes in recent races, haven't they? And I do think there will be more to come from that. Now, whether that was that the FIA found something by monitoring that extra sensor, that extra data that they put in around the Monaco Grand Prix. Whether they found something and asked Ferrari to subsequently change the way they ran their system, I don't know. That's speculation again. I don't think we will know for some time, but eventually we may get some extra information that will put some clarity on this, because it does look like Ferrari are slower on the straights, slower out of the slower corners. If you look at the GPS data, which people have done, there's a clear change in terms of the way that Ferrari delivers its power along the straights, particularly out of slow corners. So, you know, there could be reasonable explanations for that. It could be that the power units are reaching the latter stages of their life, and perhaps they used too much of the higher power modes early in their life in that real intense battle with Lewis Hamilton, and they're now forced to back off to remain reliable. Who knows? Or it could be that something's changed and there may have been something untoward, but it is speculation at this stage. So in answer to your question, what they were monitoring was the flow of energy from the energy store or the battery through the ERS system delivered to the MGU-K to make sure that it didn't breach the upper power limits. What that effect that may have had on the Ferrari, I just don't know, and I don't think many people do right now. So all the stories that are claiming this, that and the other, I think are kind of speculation at this stage. I've got to go home. We've got to go to the airport now, so I'm going to wrap this up now and pick it up when I get back, and I will have watched the race by that point, so I'll be able to answer a few more of the Japanese Grand Prix specific questions, but bye for now. Hey guys, back home again. It's bloody freezing. Jesus Christ, wasn't expecting this. Only went away for a weekend. Feels like we've completely changed seasons since I've come back. Anyway, get on with the questions, Elvis. Crack on. This one from Alistair Warren. By the way, watched the Grand Prix last night when I got back. I thought it was an interesting race. I mean, not the most spectacular, but there was lots going on all the way through the race. I mean, you couldn't you couldn't walk away from it, could you? So that's kind of what you want from a Grand Prix. So yeah, I thought it was a good, interesting race. What did you think? Questions then around that race. Alistair Warren asks this: what did you think of K-Mag moving across the track in front of Leclerc? Was it gritty, spirited driving, or amateur and reckless? And lots of you have asked that kind of question, and it's not the first time, is it, that we've had questions around K-Mag about this kind of thing. And I mean, actually, look, I said this the other week on this very show. I like the fact that Kevin Magnussen has a bit about him. He's got a bit of grit and a bit of determination, and he will not let you come past easily. And, you know, I think that's great. It's entertaining. It also lets all the other drivers know, a little bit like Max Verstappen, lets all the other drivers know that if you're going to try and get past me, if you want to come past me, you're going to have to work for it. I'm not going to make it easy. What did I think of yesterday's move? I thought, look, it was borderline, wasn't it? It was borderline, because there is no rule to stop him doing what he did, unless you say it's dangerous driving, and there's this catch-all rule, of course, like you have on the roads, that you can be done for dangerous driving. But, you know, he's looking in his mirrors, he's watching to see which way the attacking car is going to go, and he's moving that way to defend. And you've either, as stewards, got to stamp that out and say, right, we're no longer allowing that. That has got to go because it potentially is dangerous. Or you say, I mean, how easy do you want to make it for each other? I mean, you know, we want people to have to work for an overtake. We don't want anyone to make it easy. It can't be too gentlemanly, can it? We want gladiators out there. So I don't know is the answer. It's one of those that's right on the cusp and borderline. I know Max Verstappen did it to Kimi, didn't he, along the straight at Spa a couple of years ago, and we all thought it was dangerous at the time. And I can see both sides of the argument, is what I'm saying. I'm going to firmly sit on the fence, is basically what I'm saying. I love the fact that he's aggressive in his driving style. We've just got to make sure that he doesn't cause a big accident, and I guess that was on the cusp of that. So yeah, could go either way. It's borderline for me. S. Jackson has this one. He says, with Ferrari being global, the best brand and team in Formula 1, why are they making so many mistakes? That's the question on everybody's lips, isn't it? Of course. I mean, why are they making so many mistakes? I think the problem at Ferrari is they've kind of got themselves down so deep in a hole now, and they're so desperate to fight back out of it. Everybody's desperate, and they appear desperate. Even Sebastian Vettel appeared desperate on track, not just in Suzuka yesterday, but at other races previously. He's making desperate lunges. He's making desperate mistakes that just come from desperation. I think the pit wall are probably doing exactly the same. They're so terrified of getting something wrong that they're so nervous to make a decision. If you kind of compare that to the situation at Mercedes, where everybody's comfortable, and I know that's much easier when you're out in front, particularly now with the big margin they've got, but that's how they have operated all season. They've allowed a culture to grow within the team, at Mercedes this is, that has given everybody the freedom to make their own decisions, to take risks if need be, to not have this blame culture where if you feel like you're going to take a decision and get it wrong, the whole world's going to be, you know, piling on top of you to look for someone to blame. I think that's how it feels like at Ferrari. It feels like nobody's being brave enough to have, or at least have the confidence enough to take a decision without fear of failure. Whenever you have that in an organisation, you never get the best out of people. The solution to Ferrari is not a quick one, because it's a culture change that they need to start to putting in place, and that's going to take time. They need to start stopping the rot first of all, and then gradually building a change in culture where the results, perhaps for a certain period of time, it's not all about the results. And I know that's what Formula One has to be, but if you're going to start and build this culture, you've got to build it from the bottom upwards, right through the different layers of the organisation, including the drivers, including the management. And they've got an opportunity to do that with a change of management at the top, of course. And I think they need to just systematically start instilling this more relaxed atmosphere where people, the very good and very skilled people that they have at Ferrari, are given the freedom to do their jobs properly without this extreme pressure, internal pressure that they're all putting on themselves. That's the way I see it, but it's not going to be a quick fix, I don't think. Kind of on that subject of Sebastian Vettel, I Am Legend says, read the Seb-Max contact. Seb was right beside him going into the corner. He was as far to the inside as he could be with the tyres on the curb. Should Max have left more room? What's the rule? All I hear is people saying that's not a good corner to overtake. I sort of agree with you. I don't subscribe to the fact, as lots of people seem to be saying yesterday, that was all Sebastian's fault. You know, I can see the argument that says Seb shouldn't have put himself in that situation, and perhaps that goes back to what I was saying. You know, I think he was desperate. But in terms of the incident, yes, I think the stewards got it right. You know, I think no penalty because it was a racing incident, or there was certainly nobody predominantly to blame. I thought Max definitely could have left more room because there was he was clearly alongside him. And I think that Seb, because of the way that particular corner goes, Max was kind of just taking his racing line, and Seb tried to lunge into a gap that he knew was about to sort of be closed down very rapidly. So personally for me, it wasn't predominantly anybody's fault. The stewards got it right. But perhaps you can still argue that Sebastian Vettel shouldn't be putting himself in that situation, potentially, definitely not against somebody like Max Verstappen that he knows won't give an inch. Right, let's finish with this one from Senna Marc. He says, morning Mark, Gasly suffered oscillations with the new Honda engine. What does that mean, and how does it affect the drivability of the car? Okay, so when the driver talks about oscillations from the power unit, he's talking about vibrations that he feels. It can be two things. Vibrations that he feels, or hesitations as he applies the throttle. The power, and you've got to remember, the power being delivered from these things is incredibly vast. So as you hit the throttle, the power going through the rear wheels is phenomenal. Occasionally what you can get is hesitations in the way that power is delivered. So it's not delivered in this incredibly smooth, on a graph. If you see it on a graph, you want a very, very smooth power curve. And if you zoom in on that graph, what you can get is very tiny little spikes and hesitations. I mean, tiny. But a driver can feel that, because the driver's so tuned into the car. In terms of what that does, it's just not ideal. It just means that if you're getting hesitations, you're not getting all of the power all of the time as you apply the throttle. The other thing that it can do is those hesitations or those oscillations can, on some circumstances, tune into the natural kind of resonance of the car itself, and you could end up with fairly big vibrations going through the chassis as a result of that. And that's something that you can tune with your engine mapping. If you remember, I forget which team it was, I think it might be McLaren actually, maybe even with the Honda, thinking about it, had some quite severe oscillations with their chassis and power unit integration, I think way back in the beginning of that Honda relationship there. So I'm not saying it's specific to Honda, because you can get this in all engine or power unit types, but it's about the natural resonance. Everything has a resonance, as you well know. If your power unit's resonance kind of coincides or collides, if you like, tunes in exactly with the same resonance of the car, it can just amplify the vibrations. You can then get it through the chassis, it can start going through the tyres, so when you're trying to deliver that power, you can start getting the tyres vibrating, and all of that means that you're not delivering the maximum power you can down onto the racetrack every time you hit the throttle. So it's not ideal. The engineers can look at it in the data, they can start to play around with throttle maps and those kinds of things, and hopefully minimise that as they go forward. But this was the first real weekend that this engine or this power unit had gone through a race situation, a race weekend situation. So those kind of things, I guess, are to be expected, because you can do all the work you want on a dyno with a new power unit until you put it into a car and take it onto a racetrack, which of course the opportunities to do that are so limited now in F1. That's the first point that you really get to see how it interacts with your chassis and with your gearbox in that chassis and the tyres and the driver's style and all of those kind of things. So hopefully just teething troubles, but certainly looking very promising for that Honda power unit. Right, thank you very much. We've rattled on way too long again. Thank you for your patience. If you're still with me right to the end of this video, respect. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the Japanese Grand Prix weekend. I hope you had a good weekend in general. But let me know what you thought of the race and all the incidents within it, the ones we've discussed and any others that we haven't. Keep the questions coming. I love seeing them. I'll continue to try and answer them online. And I will see you tomorrow.